Hello, and thanks for coming along to And We Have an Office Dog, the digital agency podcast where we talk to agency owner-directors and learn more about what makes them tick. From the things that make them similar to the things they'd rather have known sooner, where they've had success and where they've learned some hard lessons. All will be revealed with your host, Chris Simmance, the agency coach, and he'll be talking to a different awesome agency person in each episode, asking them 4 questions and seeing where the conversation takes us over the next 25 minutes. Okay, so let us begin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, voiceover guy. Today on the podcast we have Cheryl Luzet from Wagda. She's the CEO of the multi-award winning, I think, isn't it, Cheryl?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, hi, thanks for having me today.
No problem at all. Thanks very much for being on. First of all, as ever, everyone who comes on the podcast gets a massive opportunity to plug their agency and tell us all about them to the millions of listeners, of course. So please give us a plug. What does Wagda do? Who is Wagda?
Brilliant. Okay, thanks. So we're a digital marketing agency. We've been going about 10 years, and we tend to often work with in-house marketing managers and help them as their kind of team of digital specialists. So quite often our clients, they might not be digital natives, or they don't necessarily have the specialist skills in digital. So I have a team of specialists that are able to support them. So we started off as an SEO agency, and then as time has gone on, we've expanded into other services. So we do a lot of social media, a lot of paid ads, content marketing, PR, that sort of thing. SEO's become more about brand building, I think, over the past 10 years. So that's why we've kind of expanded what we do.
It kind of has, hasn't it? I think once you get the basic principles past SEO, it is mostly sort of brand led, as long as you've got a brand, I guess.
Yeah.
So how long's Wagda been going for?
Just over 10 years. Well, so that feels like a milestone when we got to 10 years last year.
You had a party, didn't you?
We had a party, but unfortunately I wasn't there because I had COVID. So they had a party without me.
You didn't come to your own 10-year party? Oh,
no,
dear.
I was there on Zoom, but it wasn't quite the same.
You're a box in a window.
I was a box, yeah.
Brilliant. As with ever, over the next 20 odd minutes or so, we're going to have I'll ask a couple of questions, we'll have a chat. So to kick things off, what do you think's been one of the biggest successes over the last 10 and a bit years of running the agency?
Okay. Well, I think just surviving 10 years feels like a bit of a success, to be honest, particularly what we've been through over
Time
the
takes
past
its
10
toll,
years.
doesn't it?
Yes, it really does. It really does. I've definitely aged. But I think, for us, winning 2 search awards, that was a massive achievement, nationwide, UK recognition for the work that we do. We were massively proud of that. Also, I kind of think the work that we do for our clients, supporting our clients, one of the things that I've always tried to do is to make SEO very accessible to our clients so they can really understand what we're doing and really take them on that journey. And I think when I think of what we've done to our clients to transform their businesses and transform their turnover, that I think that's one of the sort of biggest successes that we can.
It's a success for sure, yeah. To be able to to be proud of that as well is quite you could just be any agency taking money off of people, and it sounds like you kind of care about the end result as well.
Yeah, no, completely.
So out of those last 10 years, the awards that you've won, looking after the clients, what's the head count at the minute? How many people are in the team?
So 16 of us at the moment, employed, and we've got a few freelancers that work for us. But we are recruiting. So if anyone's looking for a job, bit of plug there.
If anyone out of all of the people who are applying for jobs right now are looking for a job at an agency, which is actually pretty cool, I recommend you get in touch with Cheryl at Wagda. So there's your plug. You get the freebie. It's two in one podcast. This is unbelievable.
That's amazing.
If you could though go back and look at all of the things that have happened in the last 10 years and talk to the younger, more sprightly version of yourself, what would you tell her?
Oh, it's a great question, actually. I feel like over the past 10 years that I've learnt so much and my own development has come on so much. I think things that I would tell myself, I would definitely be more ambitious.
Okay.
I think I felt at the beginning that I couldn't do this, that if I'd thought to myself that I was going to be running an agency, employing 16 people in 10 years' time, I think I would have said, I can't do that. That's not something I can do. So I think I would encourage myself to be more ambitious and to have more faith in myself and really just say to myself, I can do whatever I put my mind to do.
Yeah.
And if I don't have the skills to do that thing, then I will have to learn how to do that thing. And, and actually you have to upskill as your business grows, and you're kind of forced to do that. So.
Well, it's a massive learning curve, isn't it? Because most digital agencies aren't set up by business owners; they're set up by smart people who can run digital campaigns, and there's a lot of lessons along the way, as well as just general fatigue from running businesses. So, good. Yeah, but here's the follow up to this. Would your younger, more sprightly version of you listen to your own advice?
Oh, that is such a great question. Probably not, actually, because I think I probably didn't have the confidence. I don't know. I think
the irony. Have some more confidence and ambition and drive, and I can't do it.
So. I think also the other thing I was going to say is about being proud to charge what you deserve to be paid for. Yeah. And I think that's a massive thing, especially when you're just starting out. You think, I can't charge that, and just be proud of what you do and learn the value of what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pay what you're worth kind of mindset it's big in the sort of management consultancy world. It's really not at all in the in the digital agency world. I think there's part of that is obviously when you start out, you don't want to lose potential clients to price problems, and then it's a race to the bottom, and it takes a long time to start going, do you know what, actually we should really put our prices up. And anyone listening to this running an agency right now, have a look at your prices and ask yourself, when was the last time you put them up, and do you actually think that you're worth that and probably more? Probably, if you're part of the agency owner audience actually listening to this, you probably are worth more, because you're listening to this, you must have good taste, so therefore put your prices up. And
we find when you do that, people don't really flinch. You kind of think, oh gosh, when I put my prices up, things are going to, people are going to walk away, and no one does.
Well, more often than not, it's not that they don't want to, it's not that they want to pay more, it's that they're willing to accept paying more because they can see the results are worth it. They've got their own internal targets, and as long as you get them at the right time for their financial year, you're usually okay. It depends when the type of clients you have. If they're much larger, where they've got sort of corporate billing and things like that, it's a lot easier to get some of these price rises through. However, on the smaller clients, you just need to time it right and make sure that they see the value of it. And I think the advice that you would have given yourself would have probably, I think you might have listened to that one.
Yes,
that one's more tangible.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So is there something that you sort of over the years, other than a bit more ambitious with the growth, that you kind of regret or wish that you'd done sooner, maybe?
I think the thing that I don't know whether regret is the right word, but something I would definitely change about the way I've run the business over the past 10 years is around kind of managing the team and managing staff. And I think I felt the need, particularly in the early days, to kind of carry the team. Okay. And I think I forgot that they were actually there to support me as much as I was there to support them. And and actually when you carry people, it doesn't really help them, because then they don't get to learn and develop and grow and on their own side. And actually it just wore me out completely. So I think I would definitely try harder to push people into the deep end and let me see what they can do.
Yeah, and I guess early doors that's hard as well, because you're paying to feed and clothe people as well as for them to support the doing of a business. And it's really hard to let go of certain stuff. I think one of the hardest parts of being a leader is that delegation piece, and it's not just because you don't want them to grow, you just don't want to risk the loss of something going wrong as well, and it's quite hard to live by. So
let go.
So is there something that in a similar kind of vein that you've learned the hard way, but it has set you up for this recent sort of spate of wins and get to 10 years? Is there something that you've kind of gone, shit, I wish I'd learned that earlier, but if I didn't learn that lesson, I wouldn't be where I am now?
Yes. I think two things I'm thinking. Very much around, if you realise that a member of staff is not right, is making a decision a lot earlier about that, because actually it doesn't help them. Keeping someone on in a role that they're not good at and not performing at is actually quite demoralising for them as well. And we found those times when we've kept someone on and we've said, oh, we'll keep trying to support them, we'll keep helping them. Actually, they actually become quite upset themselves about being in that situation. So I think about being quite decisive in those scenarios, but then also remembering that that your team is your business. So very much being picky about who you recruit. And I think in the past we were probably guilty of employing people that just sounded really enthusiastic and they just sounded really passionate, and we were like, wow, we were really impressed. And we always had this thing where we would say, isn't it odd, like we only ever find one good person to employ when we interview? And that was because every time we found the first good person, we gave them a job. So of course we only ever found one good person. So now we're a lot more picky. We spend a lot more time over the recruitment process, so that even if we find someone we really like, we interview a few more people just so we can get some balance. Obviously you have to be careful, because if you leave it too long, then that person can go off and get another job somewhere else. So then you can actually...
How do you manage that balance? Because I know that that's a problem for quite a lot of agency owners, in that you've got to balance the thoroughness from your perspective. They've got to be the right cultural fit as well as the right sort of ability level fit, but if they're interviewing at 5 other places at the same time. So how are you managing that balance?
It's really hard, actually, and one of the things that we started to do at the end of last year is constantly recruit. So we have a freelancer that works for us that is constantly recruiting and constantly looking for people, so that we can kind of get to know them a bit better before we even get into that interview process. So before we've even got to that point where we have a job that might work for them, we've kind of maybe already had a coffee with them and kind of had that sort of relaxed conversation. So you kind of get to know them as a person before you have that pressure of
like a pre-approvals process.
Yes, and
Brilliant.
we find that that's working really well. And when we do find we suddenly need a new member of staff because we have a big project that's suddenly come in, we have then people that we've already kind of got on the back burner that we can approach and see if they're ready to make that move.
And it's got to be both. It's got to be two ways, isn't it? I think if you're looking at the way that people think these days, especially. No offence to younger people, of course, but younger people typically look for the fit as well as the salary. But if they were to pick the two, the fit is often a deciding factor these days. And I think having that kind of getting to know you phase before any jobs come up is probably quite a good move.
Yeah, no, we find it works really well for us, actually, and it really helps us to kind of be a bit more flexible with our recruiting. It's been really good for us, actually, to kind of have this process of constantly recruiting, even when we're not recruiting. And
within the world of digital marketing at the minute, there's a big explosion post-pandemic, and there's quite a lot of new business out there, but there's also a lot of people looking for work, whether they're new to the industry or whether they've unfortunately had problems with furlough and things like that. So there's a big pool of talent. But it's kind of, you've got to pick the right one, haven't you?
It's very hard, I think, in an interview. I think we're always constantly surprised how someone turns out, because you see them in the interview and you can ask them as many questions as you want, but you don't see the real person in the interview, I don't think.
No, it's that part's really hard, and I guess part and parcel of your kind of getting to know them, like with a coffee or something like that, process probably does help quite a bit, because at least you uncover a little bit more than you would have done. Unless they're like a back-end developer and you'll never really know who they are, because
they just run to you.
Exactly. I mean, that's on a good day. Sorry, back-end developers. So if there was someone listening right now who was looking at maybe starting their own agency in the future, in a different town to Wagda, so they're not going to be a competitor.
Cool,
if they were looking to start their own agency, what piece of advice would you give them?
I think I would say to them to be constantly learning, which I think we are in digital marketing anyway. And I think one of the things that I've got masses of benefit from over the years is reading lots of business books, because I think it really opens your mind to different ideas and different ways that other people are thinking, and just kind of accept that, you know, as the business is growing, if it grows as fast as Wagda did, that your skills are probably not going to grow as fast as you need them to, and maybe not beat yourself up about that, but keep on learning and keep upskilling, and, you know, just keep trying really, and constantly evaluate what you do. And I think one of the things that the team are always kind of like laughing at me about is that I get really excited by failure, because I kind of I love it when we fail. Because
guys, we screwed up again.
We screwed up again. But it tells us what not to do next time. And I kind of think every time we fail, we're not going to do that again. As long as we learn from that, it's something that we can kind of cross off the list. Done that one now.
Yeah,
you know?
It's only a failure if you've learned from it. Otherwise, you're just a bit silly.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So learn, grow, keep going, keep growing, keep learning. What if you've just started your agency and you're in that kind of, we've had our initial bout of success. You know, when you just start and you're built, everything suddenly pops through because you've got all your referrals and all your friends have referred work in, and you picked up some work over time and things like that. Just past that little kind of hump, things start getting real. What about at that point in time? Is there something? Would that advice be different, or would it be the same advice?
I think that's probably quite a milestone for the business, isn't it? Because you've kind of had that initial surge, and it's the momentum is going to dry up unless you can actually start to do some outbound business development. If you start to bring some staff in and start to really turn it into a proper business, you know. And I think that's the point that you need to have your wits about you, really. And I think as soon as you get to the point where you think, oh, I can do this, then you're probably going to start dropping balls. Whereas if you're constantly kind of on your toes and being careful about what you're doing and thinking about, you know, thinking quite strategically about where you want to take the business, then I think, you know, that's the way you're going to succeed. Whereas if you start to kind of think that I've got this in the bag, then you're probably going to trip up somewhere along the way.
Yeah, 18 months in, you start losing that kind of referral momentum and things like that, and it can very easily turn quite sour. Not necessarily from a financial point of view, but because you start going, I keep putting the same amount of effort in every day, and no one seems to be picking up the phone calling me. This is strange. What's going on? But that's when you kind of test your mettle as an agency owner, because you've got to hire someone to fill the chunk of work that you do in order to go out and develop the business, and that's where quite a lot of the speaking stuff comes in and things like that. And there's a lot of different ways of building your own kind of marketing machine, but a proper marketing machine is essential for any agency. Not just because you'll lose clients, but you also lose staff. And like you said a minute ago, it's hard to find staff, so you need a bit of an outward, we're great marketing machine for people as well as clients. And I think that's quite a thing to do, and it costs a lot of money as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is scary when you've just started an agency.
Yes, and I agree. And I think when you just start out, you're tempted to kind of just get some cheap staff rather than invest in some people that can really take you forward. Whereas actually, if you spend a bit more and get someone a bit more experience, then it can actually absolutely transform what you're doing. Yeah,
I totally agree with you on that one. I made a couple of big mistakes with that in the past, where I thought a few cheaper people is definitely better than a few skilled people who cost more. That being said, I had one apprentice who sort of beat the odds in that sense. He was both cheap and excellent, and within like the first 6 months of being an apprentice, he was just paid whatever he was worth. He was bloody brilliant.
Wow.
Wish there were more of them. So in the building of the agency over the years, what do you think has been one of the most sort of powerful growth tools, channels, I hate the word hacks, that you've found has worked best?
One of the things that I've found most useful is talking to other business owners and other agency owners. So sort of local networking, but also going into London to things like Search London. I found that really useful, and really sort of jumping on any opportunity to say to people, how do you do that? What happens in your agency when this happens? How do you make that work? because I don't have masses of agency experience in my previous career. I was in-house quite a lot, and then the agency I worked in, they hadn't ever run an agency before, so I feel like I'm probably lacking in experience of other people's agencies. So having that ability to kind of jump on other people and share ideas has been really powerful for me, I think. And also when I take on new staff members that have worked in other agencies, I always take them out for coffee on their first few days and literally grill them of like, what was the structure like? How do you deal with this? And what happened about this? And
stripping them of all the IP that they've learned accidentally over the last couple of years.
Yeah, completely.
And then I guess conversely, what's out of all of the times you've tried to grow the business, is there a thing that you've done that you've just gone, nah, that's just not worth keeping up, that's not worth the effort?
I'm not sure. I can't think of any particular thing where I've said that's not worth the effort.
Good.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's got if I mean, not everything will have been as fruitful, I guess, but there's definitely things that you would have doubled down on, and I think, you know, that bringing people in and taking things away is great, but also speaking to your peers is incredibly powerful. I think every time I run an agency mastermind session or anything like that, the amount of good that comes from agency owners talking to agency owners about things which they all share as problems, but they kind of didn't realise that they were having the same trouble. It's a bit like a therapy session in some senses. I remember I used to come away from those sorts of things and think, crikey, I'm not on my own, and have a little sit in the car before I drive home, thinking, oh, it's a bit of a relief.
It is, and I think it gives you a bit of confidence as well that you know it's kind of not your fault that you're experiencing these problems, that everybody's going through the same thing. Yeah,
absolutely, and kind of a burden shared is a burden halved or something they say. I can't remember the specific phrase, but that kind of thing, plus the support from someone who's been through a problem that you're facing, is great, especially when it comes directly from someone who's in your space, because they run an agency as well. So totally get it. Makes a lot of sense to learn from each other. Someone on a previous podcast recording was saying that they do a version of like mastermind sessions, but with other business owners who are outside of the space as well. And they get quite a lot of value from talking to someone who runs another service-based business, essentially, so like a lawyer or an architect firm and things like that, because even though the problems are different in scale and solution, they're realistically just business problems, and it's always good to share.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Which is why this podcast exists, people.
I do think agency owners are really happy to share as well, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I think unless your office is a corridor away from another agency, you often don't really mind sharing, because there's plenty of work out there. There's as long as you're not, cheating anyone, you know, it's worth sharing, because, like I say, you can halve your burden by knowing that someone else is having the same problem and things like that. So, absolutely. Well, it's been absolutely lovely having you on the podcast, Cheryl. Thank you very much for joining me.
It's been brilliant.
On the next podcast, we'll have another fantastic digital agency owner director to talk about all of the cool things they've been up to over the years of running their agency. Just like Cheryl, hopefully not directly competing with Cheryl, because they'll have probably heard all of these great tips and taken them away. Thanks again, Cheryl, and lovely to have you on.
Brilliant, thank you.